Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian at WhisperStatus74. Welcome to the community. Welcome to the channel. This is the first time you are seeing me. Please consider liking and subscribing. We are Real Tech for Real People. Today's comparison will be the LG CX-C10 OLED at the top at 55 inches versus the Samsung Q900R. It is a 2019 8K flagship, which has also been brought over to 2020 as it is 55 inches. They did not have another 55 inch to actually compete with it. The Samsung is in its natural setting. The setting to me is most similar to LG's standard setting. The idea is to make them look as similar as I can, but to also make them show their own strengths. Both of these modes show quite a bit of pop for both. We'll be using the Spears and Munsil demo disc, calibration disc. Check the description below if you'd like to purchase that disc. And also, special thank you to Value Electronics, who has lent me the Q900R for extended review. Please look in the description for their website and consider making your next AV purchase through them. We'll be doing this in HDR, so there'll be no editing. That's why I can't label the panels. The 55 inches are, again, equal. The CX is a little further back. It is on top, so it appears smaller due to space constraints. Everyone's working from home. I don't have the room right now to put them side by side, so we'll do it this way for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Now, I'll tell you, having the CX in standard, the image will appear very cool, almost light blue. I cannot change the white balance in standard, but these do look more similar in most shots, typically in the blue ocean shots. There are times where the OLED's contrast ratio can make the Samsung look dull, and there's times where the Samsung's peak brightness and cleaner lines due to 8K resolution can make the OLED look dull. Now, this is filmed in 8K, the demo is, but it is 4K. But I swear there are times where you can notice finer details with the added resolution of 8K as you get up very close. The camera is about 4 feet from these panels. Again, there's times where they look nearly identical, as we've seen in other demos between the two. What's interesting also, the movie preset of the Samsung in many ways made it look like an IPS panel in comparison to the movie preset of the LG. So that's the only challenge when comparing different manufacturers, let alone different technologies, is certain presets are more dramatic on one versus the other. Standard preset on Samsungs used to be very bright. It's dull with this model, so it's interesting. All ambient mode and power saving effects are off. We are filming in HDR. You should be able to enable HDR with the 3 dots in the corner next to the resolution on YouTube. Now, as we get into later in the video, we get to the black level, you'll see blooming on both. Now, the more I try to pause it to calm the camera down in terms of its aperture, the more it shows blooming on both. So you'll have to just understand that they both, obviously the OLED doesn't bloom at all. There is some blooming on the Samsung, though Samsung is known for its black level. But there are interesting shots like this where the OLED looks brighter in spots. This is being filmed in 4K 30 in HDR, as I mentioned. There's shots like this where the rocks actually look a little bit cleaner on the Samsung. It looks like you're seeing blooming on both, but that's pretty impressive as the camera kind of normalizes. So you have to give the camera a second. It is trying to grab both. It does much better grabbing one or the other. But if I mess with the aperture on the camera, I take away the bright highlights of the Samsung. I don't want to favor either. I do feel like there's a bit more detail on the 8K Samsung. That could be placebo, but it does feel like you can see a bit more in the flower than on the LG. Now, I think having a 55-inch Samsung 8K, you'd have to have your nose to the screen, but it's here, so we might as well take advantage of comparing them. The contrast ratio of the OLED does make it appear brighter or more punchy at times. A lot of talk of black level is on the edges of the screen, or the delineation of black, when in reality, every single piece of material has divots in it, and that is where the black levels or scales where you'll see more of it. I apologize, that's not very clear. It does get fuzzy at times. The Samsung hangs in here during these scenes, though the OLED definitely looks more three-dimensional. And at times they look nearly identical. You'd think they were actually just a smaller version of each other. We'll also show some gaming to see how the Samsung game mode compares. Well, I'll tell you, the LG's game mode is exquisite. The Samsung is something that also out of the box has that ambient mode enabled. Also firmware updates are up to date. It had immense blooming upon launch. A lot of clarity in that image there. And even there, where I should see more detail, it still is a toss-up, but I do feel like the 8K has a bit more, which tells you that its upscaling is fantastic. Black level, again, is very impressive. Very little bit of haloing. Both images look very lifelike. This is running a Panasonic UB820 through a 4K HDR splitter, so it is a disc. And I always felt like LG was basically a Samsung OLED because it has a saturated look to it. So I always felt like at times they were close looking that way in terms of their color. I'd recommend, if you're buying an 8K panel, just to buy it on its strengths as a panel itself versus the resolution, which we can't really use yet. It will be amazing, I think, primarily in gaming when we have the horsepower to really run that. Now, as we finish up, the video is probably going to be about 11 minutes long. I'm going to run these both in Vivid, burn in my OLED to pretty much see what you see in store. The bottom is in dynamic, the top is in Vivid. It's always interesting to see these panels as you would see them in the store, which is always in torch mode. So I want to thank you for your time. I'll see you in the comments. I'll let the video run out in Vivid and in dynamic. Always interesting to see them at their punchiest, even though you wouldn't watch them this way. Maybe you do. If you're interested in a whole video of these settings at their punchiest, let me know. Vivid and dynamic. And we'll let them run this till the video runs out. Again, this is how you'd see them in store. Let me know if you run more accurate or natural settings for yourself, or do you get your sets calibrated? You can definitely see the sun pop more on the LED, the specular highlights. It's pretty cool to show both sets of settings. All right, guys. Thank you as always. Take care. Or not. It'll just keep running. See there, they look almost equally as bright.